Greetings from a still very warm Kansas City. This is Renee Benson at AV Renee KC. You are listening to and watching the AV Live.
Hello from Los Angeles. My name is Murphy Daly. You can find me at Written by Murphy on all the socials. I'm the director of IT project management, veteran of AV things, and I work for AEG Presents for events right now. You are joining us for the AV Life.
And can I now finally officially say, this is Nancy Blanchard with Bose Professional, new consultant liaison role. And I am coming to you from San Jose, California, still sunny here too. And you are listening to and watching the AV Life.
And I'm your host, Tim Van Wert, coming at you from the great state of New Jersey, where we all of a sudden became unseasonably warm again. And from Rutgers and from Hetma and from Higher Ed AV. And you are watching and listening to the AV Life. All right, welcome. So I'm going to quote Joe Way. Boy, do we have a great one for you today. I love that line. I
do too.
But you know what? It rings. He says it on all his podcasts, but for me, this one does. I am proud to say we have not 7 of the 40 under 40 here with us tonight. This is something that this is a very Corey Moss level of podcast that we're doing here tonight. And he would be, I hope he catches this one. I hope he listens, because I think this is definitely up his alley, and he would be proud of this episode as well. And for those who are listening who don't know, Corey was the previous host of the AV Life that I took over for. And he always wanted to have tons of people on the show every week. And so, this is really a tribute to him as well, and a tribute to all of the success that these influencers, or however you want to put it, James has influencers in his wallpaper there. So
that's what they call it.
And James is here, but I have brought him to be in a guest role because he is one of the 40 under 40. So
I know how Joe feels now.
Yes. But you're taking it very gracefully, James. I do appreciate that.
And he's probably not going to try to steal your show later. So there's that.
There is that.
No
too.
Promises.
Yeah.
So
how cool.
Yeah. Before we get into it, crew, everyone doing well tonight?
We're all good.
We're all good. Yes. Yes. So congratulations, Nancy, on the new gig.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, anybody that's been in a new role, it's busy. I mean, just getting caught up on all company things and you name it, paperwork and all that, but it's exciting. I'm really excited.
Plus you're coming in at the start of the 4th quarter. So, it's like being brought in at the end of the game to help close things out for the year,
Yeah. Yeah. And, next week they're having a listening tour in DC in spring. I think it's Silver Spring, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
So get back out on the road and I get to meet new team members.
Awesome. Well, best of luck in the new role, Nancy. This is, I know you're going to do great things with them. So
yeah. And what also is exciting? They're a sponsor.
They are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are a Hetma sponsor by association. That makes them a sponsor of the AV Life as well. So, all right. Before we go any more off the rails, I'm going to go around and let our guests tonight introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Noreen because she is right in the square below me. So, Noreen, please introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm Noreen Esson. I'm from Toronto, Canada, representing Canada. Yay. So I'm with Diversified, and I'm an on-site service delivery manager here in Toronto.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the AV Life, and we're glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's an honor.
All right, and moving on, we've got Erica Carroll. Please introduce yourself to our listening audience.
Thanks, Tim. I am Erica Carroll. I am from Georgia. So we're up in the Georgia mountains, about an hour north of Atlanta. And I work for Mersive as the director of product marketing and training. I'm also the co-host of the Women in AV podcast and the co-founder of the Rosie Riveters Explorers Pro AV fundraiser.
Very awesome. Yes, you're everywhere, Erica. Literally, you've been everywhere from the pictures of you and Joel traveling America. You know, so
It's been an interesting summer for sure.
well, welcome to the show as well.
Thanks.
Glad to have you. All right, Kianna, please introduce yourself to the listening audience.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kianna Pompa. I'm a senior sales support engineer out of California. I handle the western part of the United States and also Western Canada. So shout out to Canada, Noreen. I love it there.
All right. Well, welcome, and we're glad to have you on the show as well. And right next to her, I've got Britt. How are you, Britt?
Hello, how are you? Well, you already said how you are. It's just like it's the standard. I'm gonna ask you back, even though you just introduced yourself and talked about it at length.
And this is right. And this is what happens when you become a podcast host and you just automatically come back. It's just what happens. So
yeah. Hi.
So please introduce yourself even more. So
it's me. I'm Britt Yenser. I'm the director of event technology at Moravian University. That is in Northeast Pennsylvania. So I'm kind of Tim's neighbor. I am a writer and podcast host for Higher Ed AV, and I'm also involved in HETMA.
Awesome. Well, and also multi-time now multi-time appearance on the AV Life as well. So
yes, thank you for having me. It always feels good to be invited back. It means I didn't mess up too bad the first time.
Exactly. So all right. Going down to my bottom line here, just because of where everyone showed up, there's no hierarchy here. Hunter Stacey, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hunter Stacey. I am from Southern California, and I am the AV IT project facilitator for the University of Southern California, and also a member of HETMA.
All right. Well, welcome, and glad to have you here, Hunter. All right. Kameesha Jones, please introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Hello, my name is Kameesha Jones. I'm an audiovisual project manager for Florida International University here in Miami, Florida. I am also an audio engineer for the Miami Heat and the Kaseya Center.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show, and we are so glad to have you. And last but certainly not least, Mr. James King. You didn't get to do your intro to the show, so, you know.
Oh, well, thank you, Tim. Saving me for last, I guess. You know, to move to the crew from the crew to guests, and last one to go. Thank you. So yeah, James King, Associate Director for AV Services at the School of Medicine at UNLV, board member for HETMA, writer for Higher Ed Digital Magazine, co-host of Ask the Programmer. You Google me, you'll find me.
Yep. You know what? And I love that line of yours too, James. And congrats, like welcome. Well, welcome. But anyway, whatever. I should have let off with you, James. Like just because like this now I'm like regretting what I but lessons learned for later.
I just won't steal your show like Joe.
Okay, well, I appreciate that much at least. So so yes, these are our members of the 40 under 40. So Erica, you brought up the Women in AV Council and the Rosie Riveters, and this 40 under 40 list is amazing for multiple reasons, but there are more women on this list. I think that it's more than 50%, I think, on this list, which is just showing the growth. And I maybe it's not as big as we want it to be, but the women that are involved are really making a difference in our industry. And I'm not Hunter and James. I'm not saying anything bad about you, but this is a great cross section, and it's showing how much our industry is starting to change. And I think that's a true and with all of you being recognized this way is a true testament to that. So congratulations on all the great work that you've done this last year to be noted, to be recognized into this role. So, so which actually leads me into a nice. So I'm going to we're going to go back through everybody. What I'd like to know, and this is good for our listening audience, and if you're thinking about getting into AV or you're wondering how like someone could get into this role, James, I'm going to go to you, and I think people have heard your story before, but how did you get into AV?
Oh, that's a loaded question. We could talk all night about that, but really, I got
in short form
into AV. Short form is I got told I was doing AV one day. Just pulled up. I was doing networking and telecommunication. One day, got called to the big boss office, and said, "You're no longer doing that. You're now doing academic computing, and you're doing AV." And I've been in love with it since then.
Well, there you go.
That's a short. Keep it short.
Well, thank you for the short. And we've talked about James and his adventures over the years from New Jersey over, as a Jersey guy, and now over at Nevada. But yeah, if you want to hear more, go back and listen to some older episodes, and you'll hear more about James's story. Kameesha, how about you? How did you land in AV?
I would say music. Music kind of introduced me into it. I got really serious with it when I was getting my master's, and I had interned at the Adrian Arts Center for Performing Arts. And I was a production intern. So I seen all the ins and outs, and I was like, okay, maybe this would be something I could be interested in. And as consulting on a lot of shows there, I fell in love. And then after I graduated, I started having opportunities in New York and things of that nature. So I kind of got into it with, on the live side from interning at a performing arts center.
Oh, that's awesome. And just what was your master's degree in?
It was in music production and management.
Okay, cool. Just for any of our AV tweeps that are out there listening, yeah. Like what's the next step in education potentially? So yeah, okay. So that's a good option there. So all right, Hunter, what about you? How did you find yourself over at USC and and in the world of AV?
Oh, it was I actually stumbled on it on accident. I was looking for a job as a student worker, came across kind of a help desk type job. So what I thought it was, at least, was kind of going to be just working on computers and things of that nature. Turned out it was actually Joe Way's first AV higher ed position at California Baptist University, and that was for the AV team there. So I was kind of started as one of the first student workers over there for AV, and then it just kind of stuck, and I've just had some opportunities kind of open up that I've been blessed with to kind of keep going in the industry and meeting all these wonderful people. So that's kind of how I got started and how I'm here right now.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Noreen, how about you? How did you end up where you are?
So mine, sort of similar to everyone else, kind of landed in it. I think one thing we talk about, most people don't consider a career in AV. We all sort of fell into it. So for me personally, I spent most of my career in the events world. I used to plan events all over Canada, and I used to hire a lot of AV professionals. For in terms of staging and broadcasts and etc. Once I left that, because I used to work a lot of festivals, and I'm like, I really like sleeping in my bed, right? None of this, I like to shower, like the festival life. I think I was a little over it. I started working in sales for a special effects company. Long story short, I was able to distinguish what an XLR cable was. And the client was so impressed. And he's like, have you ever thought about working in AV? And I was like, no, why? And he's like, one, you know what an XLR cable is, and 2, you can wrap cable better than some of my technicians. So after that, I was like, don't know what this AV thing is, started going online, saw what a VIXA was about. And funny, it's actually where I met a bunch of actually people here, AV tweeps. They had a feed on Twitter, and I was like, started using the hashtag, and I'm like, don't know what this is about. Anybody want to chat about it? And I swear to God, I think this was like during the pandemic, everyone from all over the world were like, yep, because people love to talk about themselves. So they're like, yay, let me talk to you about AV. So, I started just chatting with people, setting up virtual coffee dates, meeting on LinkedIn. And yeah, now I work on the integration side. So it's very exciting. Never thought I'd be here. And I hope more people and more young, specifically young women, consider a career in AV. Because it is a career, promise.
Yes, I could vouch for that. It could definitely be a career. So yeah. All right, Erica, how about you?
Well, how far back do you actually go, right? Like, I was a theater kid in high school.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Technical theater.
You're a Scorpio, you like long walks on the beach.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It actually did start with technical theater. So I did lighting and sound in high school. And then my teacher at the time, my senior year ended, and she was also the resident lighting designer at a very famous improv theater in Atlanta. And she asked me to come hang lights with her over the summer, and I said yes, absolutely. And I stayed with the theater, and I ended up joining the ensemble, and I did lighting and improv lighting design for them. So that's really where it started. Fast forward a little bit, went to school for graphic design, started a graphic design firm, did some temp work, and ended up at Digital Projection, applying for a separate position. And when I met with the president at the time, Mike Levy, he basically looked at my resume and said, you have a lot of really interesting things. I don't want to, you'd probably be really good at that, but I want to make another position for you. And that was in applications engineering. And he said, would you give it a shot? And I said, yeah. So then I did geometry and math for a living. And that was over 10 years ago. So that's how it all started.
Very cool. All right. What about you, Kianna?
Okay, for me, it's basically started with my passion for technology since I was a kid. I swear when I was younger, I thought I was gonna be an astronaut or like work for NASA at some point. So when I went to college, I went to school at Cal Poly Pomona. I studied computer information systems, and all through college, I worked. I used to work at a company called QNAP that did network attached storage systems. So I thought, okay, my direction will be like network security, maybe some programming on the side, and go from there. While I was in college, I was working at this organization, and I decided, you know what? I think I did all I could do here at QNAP. Let me see what other opportunities are out there. I'm going to graduate soon. And I stumbled upon that was really looking for someone that was able to take reins of the camera business, because our PTZ cameras historically were only using like HDMI, VSCA commands, and they were at that time they were transitioning to VSCA over IP. So they needed some, talent that was more familiar with the network side of things. So I would say, just like a lot of stories here, it was kind of like a pleasant surprise. So yes, as much as I know about networks, I kind of landed into displays and imaging and all of the audiovisual technology. So it really opened my eyes, because when I was in college, like I was like, well, there's only computer forensics, there's only programming, there's only security. I never really thought of like AV as, like Noreen mentioned, a career, right? Just because it wasn't presented to me as such, right? So once I landed the position here at Sony, it's been just a growing experience, meeting such a great community, like Noreen mentioned, like AV Tweeps, right? Everyone is so welcoming. I've felt like even like the female side of things, everyone really wants to empower you with tools for advancement. working alongside Renee. She just joined Sony and we've become really good friends since she started. And I just love the community and I can't imagine myself being anywhere else other than AV. So I'm really thankful.
All right. And Britt, what's your story?
Mine is really similar to Hunter's in that I started as student employment as an undergrad. So it was about 2 weeks into my freshman year of undergrad, and I knew I desperately needed a job because I was first gen paying my own way. So I needed money to come from somewhere. And as you can imagine, my car was about as old as I was and held together with like duct tape and bubble gum. So I was like, if I could have a job that I don't have to drive to, that would also be incredible. So I went to the union building where they were hosting a job fair, and I just happened to walk up to a table where Craig Underwood was sitting. If you know that name, he's the membership chair of HETMA right now. So I walk up and I asked, "Oh, what's media services?" And he described it in very vague, non-technical terms, like, "Oh, we do record things and microphones," And I was like, "Oh, I did recording projects in high school. So like I know some basic videography. I know how to edit videos." And he said, "You're hired." And I worked for him all 4 years, and that was my foray into AV.
Very cool. And yeah, Craig, I think is a pretty good boss, right?
Incredible. Yes.
All right. And all right, so I'm going to ask this next question where I'm not going to call out anybody, but I'd like to hear your story about what was your reaction when you found out that you made the 40 under 40 list? Because this is, I mean, I've looked at this list every year since I've at least since I've been at Rutgers. So over the course of the last almost 9 years now, I've been watching this list happen, and it's always exciting to see who's the next one that they're going to call out on it. So open to the gallery. What was your reaction like?
I'll go first. So I was
Go ahead,
actually really excited because I recognized so many people on
Yeah.
it. When I first looked at
Yeah.
the list, I was like, "Oh, and Chrissy and Noreen," and like pointing everybody out. I was just very excited about it. And then I started looking at it like, "Oh, I need to have all these women on my podcast."
That's awesome. I am
Very
not a
cool.
40 under 40, but I remember when I saw the list and I did the same
Yeah.
thing, Eric, and I was like, yes, just kept going. And I saw James, because obviously we're together every week on here, and Kianna and Chrissy, who I work with every day, and Britt, who has come into the AV Tweeps like a firecracker and lighting it up in our industry. And Hunter, you're just seeing everybody, and it's like, oh my gosh, I know all these names.
I will say, yeah,
awesome.
from my perspective too, like over the course of the years now, I do know more people on that list. Now, I don't know if that just means I'm getting older or if I've been in the industry too long, or but it is nice to see more and more familiar names. And then the ones I don't know, I want to get to know them. Like there's a reason that they made that list.
Yeah.
So, but all right, continue. Who wants to go next?
Go. So when I got the email, I guess I didn't read it properly because I've been nominating people for the list. So I was just like, "Oh, okay, there's an email." And then it took me a second to realize it was addressed to me, right? Because I'm like, "Oh, you know what? They need some supporting documentation or something," because I've nominated people over since at least since last year. So it was really in shock. And I was at work when I got the email, and I did a little squeak, and everybody's like, "Oh my God." And everyone's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think so." Right? I was like, "I think so." And you're like, "Okay, I'm nominated." Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. Well, it does. It means a lot. But you're just like, "Okay, don't want to say anything." But when that final list came out, I remembered I was just in disbelief. Because again, I was just in this process of nominating other people, working with other people to nominate other people. And it was really exciting. And it was just, as you said, Tim, you start to recognize a lot of the names, and it just shows, in my opinion, they're doing something right. right? Because you start hearing some of the names because of the work they're doing in the industry, right? They're really paving the ways. And then when you start reading the profiles of those you don't know, you're like, this is an incredible group. So it was really humbling.
Very cool. Anybody else?
Now, all of you
Go ahead,
were
Murphy.
surprised to discover that AV was a thing for you, with the possible exception of Kameesha. Because, I mean, you were going after it for your education, but I don't think you thought of it as AV. You thought of it as music production, right?
Yeah, I definitely did. I didn't, like I said, it was not introduced to me as a way where everybody else was introduced to it. It was introduced to me as far as like on the entertainment side, and like, you can actually do this for a living type of thing. And I was like, oh, really? And then
You're like, a living? I thought I was just gonna have to starve.
Yeah, it was pretty much, but it was like
Now,
I said, it was
that's similar to me, because when I got involved in AV, it was called video conferencing. I was doing corporate conference room setup, and we didn't call it AV. I thought I was involved in networking, and I didn't even know it was AV until much later.
Right.
It was like, it's like this little secret that is, it's like camouflage. You can't quite see it amongst all the leaves, what's happening. So it's interesting to hear that almost all of you, pretty much all of you, were like, this is a thing. Oh, except maybe you, Hunter. You maybe knew. Maybe a little bit.
Not too much. I mean,
No?
I didn't think I was getting into that specifically. I thought I was doing like hardware help desk type stuff, because I had seen it in like one of our campus buildings so many times. I didn't even know that we had, which we didn't, I guess. We didn't even have an AV program at that time, and that was just so happened to be on the like job application list when I started applying there. So it kind of was like a I don't know, coincidental lucky break, I guess, just to discover it.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Like, you just never know what life's going to bring you. Certainly, I was shocked to discover, and I love it. I'm glad that you're all part of it, and you're making your marks already. How amazing.
pretty much. Going back to the question, what was my reaction? I was pretty shocked. But I kind of knew Alicia was up to something because she asked for my birthday and my title. So I was like, what are you doing? But so I think for me, it was a very humbling experience. It's very honored because, I mean, for me, I can't speak for anybody else. I was at a point where I was working, and I haven't gotten any fruits of my labor. And I just felt that. And I just had the blinders on, and you just focus on that one thing. But when someone's actually sees the work and your fruit of your labor, and you're like, oh, and then to be honored amongst incredible people, and it's just like, oh, okay. So now my work is definitely getting, the fruits of his labor now, and it's getting noticeable. So this has been, and being nominated for, and actually, receiving it has gotten so much attention from, everyone else. And it was just like, oh, my LinkedIn blew all the way up. Like, I was just like, okay, there we go. So it's a very honored an experience. And it was, like I said, it was very humbling for me. Like, oh, wow. Okay. So my work is not being in vain. Let me continue to work hard too.
Did I hear you on another podcast that somebody from another country reached out to you because they saw you on the list or something? Yeah.
They did. Africa University is somebody in Africa. Yeah. They reached out.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it was pretty
making impressions and didn't even know it.
Right.
That's awesome.
Very cool. And Britt, this has been a great year for you as well in general. You had AV Professional of the Year from higher ed, and now 40 under 40. So so when you found out about it, what was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what everyone said. It's overwhelming. It's humbling. You see everyone else on the list and you get so excited for them. Truthfully, one of my first reactions was, like you all were saying, like pointing out the people I knew. Kameesha and I were texting each other about how excited we were and how proud we were of each other. I really I think I felt more invested in other people, honestly, than I did in myself. Obviously it's extremely incredible. Like, I'm so thankful to be recognized in that way, but I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or what it is, but like I can look at everyone on the list and go like spectacular, show-stopping, incredible, yes. And then I get to my picture and I'm like 7 raccoons in a flesh suit, does not belong. And just like moving on. So, I don't know.
You absolutely belong,
Absolutely.
by the way.
Thank you. But yeah, I
Well,
mean that's just the honest reaction of like I don't know how I got here, but I'm very thankful.
I had the same reaction as Britt. It was like, I don't know how I made that list, and I'm like, I don't deserve to be. Even on this podcast, you got rock stars like Hunter and Britt and Noreen and everyone else. And I'm sitting here like, why am I listed among these rock stars here? Because I don't think anything I do is as quality as everyone else is doing. So I understand what Britt is coming from.
So
Wow.
I absolutely think you deserve to be here, especially with all the book recommendations and
yeah.
the work that you did with Wave It to pick their latest book. It's like top notch.
Did you read it?
I haven't read it yet because I just saw the post 2 days ago.
We've been sharing it, but yeah, no, it's a great book. Very good book. But yeah. No, I made that suggestion to during the open forum. I'm like, well, check out this book, because I tell everyone about that book because it's good. But again, I'm just doing my daily thing. But to go on what Kameesha said, I think having the fruit of your labor be rewarded is key. And sometimes the environment helps. I mean, I've been in higher ed for 15 years now. 2008 is when I started. My old job, nothing against them. There was no celebrating. They like putting yourself out there wasn't a thing. This year that I've been in my new position, I had my own work has written an article about me. I had been nominated for the 40 under 40 as well. I think what is 89th of the top 100 UC influencers and a bunch of other things that are coming along. So it's all I'm not doing anything different, but the work environment is supportive. They even during my interview, they told me we want the school and you on covers of magazines. So having that backing from the work is awesome. So Kameesha, hopefully you get that too. If not, you need to find a spot you are, because you should be on covers.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So
Yeah,
something that I'm
James.
interested to see is where we're all going to be like in the next 5 years or 10 years. Because when at
On vacation. That's what I like.
yes, on vacation, absolutely.
On vacation.
At CEDIA or CI Expo, they had the whole pavilion for the 40 under 40, and they showed everybody's pictures. And I wanted to see like a where are they now? So I'm excited to see that the people who are in it, I really think are gonna be, they're still gonna be in the industry. And when I say that, I mean like the women. I mean, not, obviously I'm a little bit leaning more towards keeping women in the industry. But when you look at the older list, number one, there weren't many of us, and number two, you don't still see them around. So I'm really excited to see where we're headed in the future and how we can retain that talent.
So that brings up a good question there. I agree. I was very pleased to see that we split 50-50 females, the male. It was awesome. And I'm a big component thinking of if you can see it, you can be it. So to the females on this group, how can the industry keep bringing folks like you back and keeping you in this industry? Because we did lose some, and that sucks. I will flat out say it sucks that we lost some. We lost a great talent.
I think that's the big question that everybody needs to solve for, and recognition is part of it. There's a lot of unpaid work that women do, and that also falls into the workplace. Who's planning a party, or who's cleaning up the kitchen, or who's, all those extra tasks that get delegated to women. and then they don't get the recognition.
I think for me, and I'm sure this, I would say this entire group, and I would like to thank most, if not all, the recipients on the list. For many of us, we do a lot of it because we love it, or we do a lot of it because it's the right thing to do. I don't think, and for me, I've been very intentional about the things that I do in my life. And so when I volunteer or, I step up, it's because it's right, not because I'm looking for recognition. I know this came from a cultural thing where I've sat on and co-led and chaired diversity, equity, inclusion task force and done a lot of work in the space. And I remember one time when I was nominated for an award, and the first thing I did was, no, thank you. I'm okay, because culturally we're subservient leaders. We don't do it for that. We just good people. You just do it. And I remember the president calling me and being like, you have to accept this nomination, because all we do is we talk about is representation, right? And here you are being acknowledged and you don't want to take it. So with the help of my therapist, she makes a lot of money off of me, seriously. But one of the things that I said was, I'm going to say yes. So when people ask me to speak, as much as it's not in my comfort zone, I say yes because I have to represent. And my goal and the intention, and it's sort of like, what is it? What's the word? It's like, with great leadership comes great power, or something along those lines. But the idea, and this is what I said, I was like, especially women, women of color, more specifically, there just isn't many of us, right? And so what I say is, we say yes until I don't have to say yes anymore, because there'll be so many more other people that they can ask. Until then, we'll have to represent. And so I think that, just, the crew here, we do it because we love to do it. We don't do it to be recognized. We do it because we feel like it's part of who we are, and we show up. And I think it's just great and humbling to be recognized for that, without feeling like, hey, I need the accolades. I need this. I need it on my resume. It's just, hey, we just do good work, right? So this is my 2 cents.
Yeah, definitely like to piggyback off of that. Representation definitely does matter. And I think, for me, I am a vessel in my community. I am that person that will say, hey, what are you doing? What you got going on? I speak a lot about the high school that I work with a lot of times, and especially the young ladies, and especially in their 12th grade, and I'm asking questions like, hey, what you trying to do with your life? What are you doing after this? What's happening here? So, they get a lot of I don't knows and things like that. So it's my job to expose them to things that they have no idea what's happening. So once again, in the urban community, you see what you get. So I am that representation to say, hey, I am standing before you. I've came to that same neighborhood as you came from, but I'm sitting before you with 2 degrees and I have many accolades. And let me show you how I can help you do this. So I think for me, is representation matters. And also too, I want to put myself in more director roles so that I can hire the people of color, or people that I see potential, don't have much experience, but they have good heart. They are good people, and like I said, I don't care for the accolades or anything like that. I don't care for any awards and all of the stuff, but if duty calls and I am, that front head of that, and I'm standing the front lines of it, I'm gonna represent, because like Noreen said, it's not many of us. It's really not many of us, specifically a person of color. And if they don't see it, how they know that it's possible? So exposure is what, I'm very big on. And like I said, I'm a vessel to a lot of people that come in my path, because I have experience, I have connections to get people to where they need to go. Like I said, AV is a big part. And I am that girl that will speak AV and people don't know what it is. People, like I said, I was introduced to it in production in a live atmosphere. Right now, how I'm introducing AV to everyone else that has that same type of mindset of me is, oh, I'm a DJ. Okay, you a DJ? Yeah, this is a DJ. But let me tell you what else I can do though. So I'm going to relate that, and I'm going to show them beyond that. So I just think it's just representation and just being that vessel for people to actually know what this is.
Mm-hmm. And Kameesha, you brought up a good point. Like it's about having the good heart. You know, and I think a lot of us that have been very successful in this industry have that good heart. And that was told to me when I first started in higher ed. And what was going to be my boss said to me in the interview, he's like, I'll teach you the technology, but you've got the heart. And I could see that. And he's like, then you're going to do well. And I mean, can't complain after, 14 years in higher ed. So but yeah, you're right. It's finding that heart and being the rep and being that vessel. So yeah, that's awesome. I don't want to.
And
I didn't want to. Go
and
ahead,
I'm
Renee.
lucky I get to work with Kianna because I get to see her passion, and I feel like if I would have been half this passionate about my career as she is, I mean, at her age, where I would be today, and even as the older person in the group, it's still motivating to go, okay, I still have a lot of years left, right? So I need to get in gear with some of this. But she's so passionate and she's so always going to the next level for everybody. And I know if I worked with everybody else, I could say that for you too. But I just love it. I love the passion. And sometimes I can't hardly have a conversation with her because she's so smart, but it's so awesome
Stop.
too. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And customers talk about her. She's not only personable, but very technical. And I'm just like, yep, that's my SSE. I got to be more like her. So it works both ways too, where they're motivating us 40-ish people.
I guess it's crazy too, like just seeing all of your experiences. I mean, you speaking about representation and being the face of your community, like I feel that so much. So when I was named for, like, I couldn't believe it. I feel like kind of like I never was working towards that. I didn't even like think of it as, I feel like within the 3 years that I've been in the AV industry, like recently, like I've been learning all about the community and the lists and like the people and meeting everyone. And over the past 2 years, I really feel like I've been really engaged, pushing forward to try to build that network and learn what everything is about, and training the community, and then also trying to be I would say culturally like less humble. And what I mean by that is usually when you get representation, like even on this list, like Renee is always going to be the first one to introduce me, like, oh, and this person is our 40 under 40 class, right? And I'm always like, kind of like, oh, like, you know, like not me, it's fine. Like like, you know, you guys are always hyping me up, but I think that, yeah, everyone's very proud of me, but I feel like it's very cultural. Like you're like be humble, like whatever comes to you will you know grow, and you don't have to say anything. But now that I'm in this industry, I think that that humbleness is slowly going into more of, let's bring people up. Great, I made it here, let me be that voice, let me be that, like after being first gen, let me educate the females in my community, let me go back to my high school, let me go back to my college and show them this different path. And instead of thinking, oh, you're not being humbled, like, no, we're elevating those experiences and being more inspirational to our community. So accepting those awards so that I can bring more people into this environment would be like my end goal. So being named 40 under 40 is a big deal for me just because of that. Like I feel like it brings representation to my community. So it's very inspiring.
That representation aspect is a big aspect of James's question originally, and that's what we aim for also. Like, you can't be what you can't see. So every time
Definitely.
we have a chance to even talk to children or kids in high school, really making the correlation of like, you deal with AV on a daily basis, you just don't know it. But breaking it down for them and showing like, this is how AV correlates into your daily life currently. Something as simple as like controlling the lights in your house. It's AV at a very basic level. But the
AVL,
more that,
it's the L.
but the more we have that representation, once they turn their heads and they go, oh, AV, oh, there's a lot of diversity in this industry. You know, that's, I think, the ultimate goal of like allowing people to see that they belong where we are.
Yeah, I agree that representation matters. I say this all the time. I saw it from running a youth sport program. Anytime the women's national soccer team was on TV doing good, we saw an increase of young females joining our program. Like it was, they're out there performing, and then
Right.
our enrollment of young females increased. So it was definitely a correlation, and 100% agree with that.
Well, Britt just did that at her school too, right? With yours trying to engage student workers, right?
I did, yeah. So my student recruitment this year was Barbie themed for the Barbie movie. And I had my staff grew exponentially. Like I had a staff of 6 when I started. My staff is 16 now, and it is leaning more heavily toward women. I have the most women on staff I've ever had, actually more than young men at this time. And a lot of that had to do with meeting them where they were and showing them, like, see this thing in the zeitgeist that you loved? I loved it too. You want to join my team? We're cool here, you know, and we got them into it, and they're loving it. And then the one other point that I want to add about representation, and it's not gender specific, but it's something that I'm really passionate about, is, you know, we're all humans. We've all been through the trenches. I've been through some pretty significant trauma in my life. Like there were the days, especially when I was young, that I would not even get out of bed. And now cut to 31 years old, higher ed AV Pro of the Year, CI's 40 under 40. And that was something that I could not in my wildest dreams have envisioned for myself when I was going through those dark periods. So I just want to highlight that and shout out to those people who are in the dark times now, that all you have to do, and not to oversimplify it, but get out of bed and keep going, because if you keep going, you never know where you're going to get to.
That's awesome.
See that
awesome. I always go with that line from Meet the Robinsons, keep moving forward. It's one of the most understated Disney movies that's out there. Has an awesome message. I mean, at the very underlying, it's keep moving forward, and that's 100% right, Britt. You know, you gotta keep it going. So I love your story. That's it.
I'd like to respond to James's way back question that everyone was responding to, of how can this industry help attract and keep women. I have been doing this for many years now, and many of the choices that I made about what position I would do next had a lot to do with whether I can handle the workload. I'm very much a hands-on. I liked cabling things, and when I was thinking of what to do next, I would cable stuff. I'd put together the AV systems in different locations, and I looked at the men who did it, because it was the men. It was always men that I saw at the time. And there is a difference in the way men and women work. Man, I love the guys who put my stuff together. I love the techs that I work with. I love so many of the men in AV. So much admiration. In general, these guys work like fiends. When I have been on projects working with these technicians, putting stuff together, putting in the people doing the commissioning, they will work really long hours. And I would watch them and go, don't you need to stop and eat? Like, I need to eat. I'm hungry. And I would bring, it certainly was the case for me. I think it's the case for many women. I got to have some lunch. I got to have some food. So I would never go to a job site and not have a protein bar, because I'm like, these guys are going to stay and I don't want to pull them away. They seem to have a different metabolism. I don't know what's going on, but there are differences. I mean, this is some real stuff that I actually saw and experienced. And I thought, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can do that 12-hour day in the same way.
Well, maybe a big breakfast on the way to work.
Okay, Nancy, maybe that would work for you. But in these cases, I'm like,
donuts. No, I'm not a breakfast eater. So I'm one of those where I'll maybe sometime in the afternoon have something to eat, especially busy. It keeps your mind off of it. Unless you're
I just think that sorry, I just wanted to add you know, in terms of what James, in terms of like women, but I think in general, one of the biggest flaws of this industry is not being aware of all the different job opportunities, right? And I know I kind of spoke at Infocom, and one of the things that I said, like I was a project manager, I would go.
That was
and
a great session, by the way.
Thank you very much. So, I spoke about project management, being on a construction site, having to deal with, whatever it is, right? But I look at this where, as you mentioned, Erica, like in terms of the opportunities, there's residential, there's higher ed, right? There is integration, there's distribution, there's manufacturing. So there's so many facets of this industry that we don't recognize as being AV, right? You can work in sales. And this is where I look at it. It's like, hey, you want to do this? You can work at Disney, right? And you could do broadcasts and events or whatever it is. But there's just so many opportunities that I feel like people aren't aware of. Right. And I think that that's one of the biggest flaws is that, starting at a very young age, that we have to recognize, and as you said, Erica, like that is AV, right? That is a facet of AV. And this is something that I think as an industry, and I know one thing that I spoke about in project managers that in this project management session at Infocom is that we as an industry need to start taking ourselves seriously. And I think that that's one thing that we don't do. And so it's being proud about it. It's talking about it and just being aware of the different opportunities that I don't think that even now, like I think as someone who's still, well, I would say like been in the industry for a few years, I'm still learning. I'm like, that is a job. How did you get that job? Because I didn't know. Right. And I think that it's like whether it's solutions engineer, engineering, commissioning, people like these are certain terms that some industries don't have. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we tell people about the jobs that are out there, the more people want to hear about it. Right. And it says a lot of these jobs didn't exist. Right. Like when you were young, I'm sure they were like, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a nurse. That's what my parents said. You had to be a nurse. And there's just still now, they're just like, are you going to get a real job? Right. But yeah, so again, just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to agree with you, Noreen, for the fact that all of my roles have been new roles. And the only way I found out by them is word of mouth and people I knew. And there's nothing, I mean, even with LinkedIn, if you were to try to type in, specific AV role terms, nothing comes up, and it makes it very hard to be able to look for anything there. So it really is, working the shows, the networking, the connections and things.
Yeah, it definitely, we need to do a better job at marketing ourselves. I know I actually put this challenge out during one of our episodes where, I mean, if you look in the tech field, people know who Apple, IBM, HP, they know who they are. They're out there everywhere. They're sponsoring sports team. They're in your face on TV. They're in TV shows and movies. Where my kids know AV, the show Stranger Things. I can sit there and tell them what I do. They understand, but where they're seeing it out in public is actually that one show. We need to do a better job. And I put out in the one episode where we have the World Cup coming. I'm sure there's manufacturers who are, doing things for the World Cup. Give behind the scenes tour. Show them what's going on. I mean, the Sphere just opened up in Las Vegas. That's all AV right there. Show that to the world. Show that to everyone. Get that on TV. It's been doing a pretty good job on Twitter, I want to feel. And also, like talking about, people don't know, because I remember sitting there talking to one of my student workers, and it was like, what's your future plan, career, and all that stuff? And he's like, he wasn't sure. He was talking to some IT stuff that he wanted to go into. And he's like, I used to be really good at gaming, but he's like, I don't want to be a professional gamer. He's like, I know I don't want that, but he's like, I really enjoy playing gaming. I'm like, well, what else can you do with gaming? He's like, well, I'm not sure. I'm like, you see these esports arenas, right? He's like, yeah, they're pretty cool. I'm like, that's all AV there right there. He's like, you're right. I'm like, that's what we're doing here. Like, we're not doing gaming, but we're doing what they're doing. He's like, I could do that. I'm like, yes, you could. And with that, I do have to go.
I was gonna say, we are getting towards the end of our time here. So thank you, James. Congratulations again on making the 40 under 40, and we'll see you next week.
And congrats, everyone. Well deserved to everyone on here. Good night.
Good night.
Hi, James.
Well, I was saying I think that's a good way to start to push ourselves towards wrapping up for today. Again, I'm going to echo what James said. Congratulations to all of you for making this list. This is amazing, and to all the ones that are on the list that didn't get a chance to get here on the show, congratulations to you as well. Parting thoughts. I know there's been a lot said for those that are listening, that any tidbits from those members here, parting thoughts for the listeners. What do you think?
I'll just say something really quick.
Go ahead, Hunter.
Kind of echoing some of the topics we talked about today, just supporting each other, and providing women in particular, but just everybody, the opportunity to be recognized for their work. I think, especially for those of us who have been nominated and rewarded with this, achievement here, I think it's important for us to use our platforms and our connections to also uplift other people, and give them recognition and nominate them for things like this and other things that show up. That way, we can support everybody in our industry and give them the opportunity to reap what they sow, as Kameesha had said about seeing the fruits of your labor. So I think, just as an industry as a whole, just providing opportunities for each other and continuing to support each other in everything that we do.
Awesome. Well said. Anyone else? No pressure on this one. This is I'm not calling on everybody. So
I'm gonna say ditto to what
Ditto.
Hunter said. Ditto.
Yeah, agreed.
I would just jump in real quick and say, obviously, congratulations to everyone, and it's super awesome to be on the call with all of you. To kind of recap or put a bow on some of the heavy topics that we talked about, I would say, for listeners, I would encourage you, if you were listening to this and you're like, I want to know more about how to support people in the industry and I want to know what's going on, Google the mental load and learn what that is. Google microaggressions and figure that out, and also Google weaponized incompetence. And I think that you will learn a lot, and I encourage you to learn. And that's it for me.
Very cool. All right. Anybody else? Okay.
I just want to say
Oh,
it was
go ahead,
really
Murphy.
wonderful to hang out with you all and to share the table, the virtual table with you all. Hear your, like I tweeted, hear the origin stories, and just, it was a really invigorating discussion here. Thank you so much for doing what you do and for joining us today.
Yes.
Thank you all for bringing all of us together.
Well, you're welcome.
What an
Thank you for joining.
opportunity.
This is
Thanks for the opportunity for having us.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. This is definitely, and I called it. This was a great one today. There's very few times I'm actually right, and this is ask anybody. I'm usually the wrong. I'm usually wrong. So it's
no, this was a great idea. It was great to have
like Spider-Man and Uncle Ben. I had it wrong in the chat, but all right. Well, hey, again, congratulations and thank you to all of you for being here tonight. If you are looking to know more about the folks that are here and the other members of the list, Commercial Integrator, just do a search for 40 Under 40 and it'll give you all their names, their LinkedIn contact. You can go in and find them there. Crew, thank you so much for being here tonight. Wonderful to have you all back. And as always, until our next adventure.